bless America.
Listen, David, is it the worst thing in the world that I have some confidence in my co-host to figure some complex stuff out?
Yes.
That means I got a lot of faith in you, my guy.
Yeah, okay, cool. That's awesome. But confidence in me in something that I've never done before ever, nor have I claimed to be competent in to begin with, that's a problem. And then expected results in a crunch time, it flusters me.
David, listen.
I'm confoundedly flustered.
David, listen. Do you think...
I'm all ears,
Do you think the first guy who goes, whatever the next thing that comes out of that cow over there, I'm drinking it. And then like fast forward, now we have milk. You know, his friend could have been like, hey, dude, you know, try this. He's never seen him do it before. He doesn't know if he's going to die if he does that.
Okay, I've got a rebuttal.
Great things
I've got a rebuttal. You know what they didn't do with the monkey they shot into space? They didn't go, well, I'm pretty sure he'll figure it out. Let's just put him in the cockpit. He'll find that big flashing button. He'll hit that first. No problem. No, they automated the response. They took it out of the monkey's hands because guess what? The monkey didn't even know what weightlessness was. And I bet he was screaming his little monkey head off as they shot him into orbit for the first time ever with no plan to bring him back, by the way. Just bye, monkey.
David.
Bye, monkey. Enjoy flinging your shit until you starve to death up there. You know what's that's how the Planet of the Apes started. He came back, he's like, oh yeah, I learned some shit up there, boys. David. You thought you were just going to rocket me off into the Never Never Land.
Are you done? Because I have follow-ups.
I just wanted to think for one more second about weightless monkey.
Okay, because I don't want to interrupt your stream of consciousness, so continue.
Weightless monkey poo flinging. Like, at what point? Was it just a cockpit full of monkey and poo? Did he take his G suit off at some point? Did he even survive the launch? I don't know. We don't have any of these answers.
Okay. I think I forgot what I was going to say.
Perfect.
However,
okay.
I would like to say that what separates us from the animal kingdom is the ability to reason through complex problems.
Sure.
So, you know, I thought, you know, I'll give David, I'll test his little brain cells.
His little brain cells.
I'll give him a really complex thing that, listen, I don't know how to do it. Obviously, because the show would have went as planned if I knew how to do it. So, you know, I'm not casting aspersions. I don't know how to do this either.
But you just assumed.
Hold on. But I had faith in my co-host. And
how did
why is that the worst thing in the world? I believe in you.
You sent your co-host into a battleground armed with zero intel, with no equipment, and just said, figure it out.
Oh, but here was my second point about the monkey thing. Because by bringing up battle, you make me remember it again. So you're comparing a life or death situation for this poor innocent primate cousin of ours to something where it's just like, all right, bro, let's just record something different than what we had planned. Like, I didn't put you in a situation where you had to go out on stage for the first time with your pants down. Like,
I'd have felt more comfortable doing that.
If it didn't go through.
If I was on stage with my pants down, I'd have been like, you know what? I've been here before.
None of the memes even knew this happened other than us telling them about it right here, now.
I just like to think that you think I'm a young Jamie Vernon over here that just has all this technical wizardry and an endless bank account that I can just buy things right, lock, stock, and two smoking barrels right then and there, plug it in, know what the hell's going to happen at any point at anything. I've never claimed to do that. I'm just as technologically unadvanced as you are.
Listen, I'm very surprised
by this. So for you to
expect
expect me to do that? Because I screamed into a microphone a couple of times, you thought I knew audio engineering through in and through out?
I think I'm very surprised by this, and I did not know that that's what we were paying for.
Of course you didn't.
So I think we need to...
You're going to look at my budget? You're going to cut down my income on this thing? That's interesting. I'd love to see you try.
I'm just going to increase your losses.
Perfect. All right, you ready to jump in now?
I think
this is something I'm actually good at.
Okay. Welcome to Weapons of Meme Destruction podcast episode 41, which can be found at wmdpodcast.com/41. You can find it on YouTube. Just type in Weapons of Meme Destruction. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and I always want to say there's something else, but I always forget.
You'll find us everywhere. If you just search one, you'll find them all.
Yes. Weapons of Meme Destruction, I believe on Google, we're like the first or second option, which is pretty awesome. So that means people love us and we're smart and pretty.
That's exactly what that means.
With that being said, David, other than Captain Trippy Stairs talking to Congress the other night, not much really happened this week, right?
Well, not a whole hell of a lot.
Let's just say to find this week's topic, we had to scrape a little deeper than the front.
Well,
page.
he guaranteed that we were going to enter a utopia, right? That's basically what, and then all of his constituents agreed.
Yeah,
pretty much. But yeah. I mean, so go to sleep, America. Sleep tight. Sleepy Joe's on the case. We'll get this solved quick, fast, and in a hurry.
He'll probably, sleep tight. He'll probably be asleep with a warm glass of milk and a belly rub about 2 hours before you. But
I'm going to take a quick power nap, but then I'm going to solve all these things once I get up. You got it, Joe. Yep.
So we dug a couple pages deeper than the front page news, and we have an interesting little factoid that we would just like to riff on. About the 2020 census. So maybe you forgot, right? Because that literal rock you were under by being sequestered in your home for an entire year. Maybe you forgot that we did a census last year. And things such as the census numbers matter for a whole bunch of reasons, but one big reason is because the congressional seats in a given state are determined by per capita population. So if you have a bunch of people leave state A and go to state B, state A can lose a representative and state B can gain one. And that's exactly what happened with the 2020 census. So
for the first time
ever to California. I don't think every state that lost a representative.
Usually people are flocking to California.
I know.
Despite the constant aspersions of fires constantly, watching your house burn to the ground with all your memories, your $1 million home, by the way, taxation out the wazoo, by the way, earthquakes because God just doesn't like it. It just keeps going, you know what? I don't want you to be here anymore. Much like all the rest. And then, not to mention the simple fact of the dregs of society. And I'm not talking about the homeless ones. I'm talking about the wannabe actors
David,
and actresses.
I hear you. All I'm saying is you're putting the cart before the horse.
Am I?
Because what I want to do is start for what would be all the reasons to go to California? What are the happy reasons? And then get into
be famous.
The bad reasons that explain these census numbers.
Because you want to sell your body.
Right? Because if we're trying to explain the census numbers, those earthquakes been happening for a long time.
Oh, yes, they
Those
have.
fires been happening for a long time.
Arizona Bay.
You know what hasn't been happening for a long time? Massive rises in property rates, massive rises in taxes, all the homeless people, like everything that California is failing policy-wise is exactly why these numbers are what they are.
Can I say Weinstein without getting canceled?
Yeah.
Okay. Weinstein.
So I want happy things first.
Oh, okay.
That's all I'm saying.
I was just bringing up the bad
stuff. The bad stuff is coming.
Oh.
But it's...
These muscular manies are coming, and they're coming strong.
All right. So now that David and I have hashed that out live on air.
Yes, it was beautiful weather. Awesome.
Yes,
perfect.
A whole bunch of reasons to actually want to go and live in California.
All the beautiful people
that are not at all related to the policy of the government of California. But anyway, so we're just going to do a quick rundown between the states that got extra representatives in Congress and states that lost one. So
can we have a Jeopardy segment too? What is the correlation? Okay, go ahead.
Yes.
List all the ones.
Yes, we do. We do want you to figure out the correlation before we can point it out for you. But the states that gained seats: Texas got 2 seats, Florida got 1 seat, Montana got 1 seat, North Carolina 1, Colorado 1, and Oregon 1. States that lost seats, and for those of you keeping track at home, you might see that there's more losses than gains. But California lost one, New York lost one, Illinois lost one, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and West Virginia all lost one. Now, 7 states losing one, 6 states gaining one, and then Texas getting 2. There's your numbers. So a 7-point switch between the states.
Country road.
So
sorry, can't hear it without singing it.
Have we given them long enough to think of the correlation?
There's 2 outliers to each group.
Of course, yes.
Well, I mean, there's 1 outlier to each group, 2 in total. Have you figured it out yet? Have you sniffed out this truffle? Have you found the secret spot?
Let's be completely fair here, okay? So all the states that are gaining seats, Texas, Florida, Montana, all red states. North Carolina, you can say, is pretty purple. Colorado is purple, but has been trending blue a lot more lately. Yeah. And Oregon is pretty blue. So, hold on. Oregon's
major cities are blue, but everything else outside of it's red. So purple. I'd argue purple for Oregon.
Right, but again, you could say, but Florida is a purple state depending on how it goes in national elections because the 3 counties in South Florida outvote the rest of Florida.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The major cities.
Right, but what I'm saying is on a state level, that still represents as purple because it can switch red to blue between elections. Okay, fine. That's what I'm saying.
Let's not get caught up in semantics. Right now, it's red.
But we want to, for correlation purposes, we want to be we don't want to make it seem like we're
honest and open.
Yeah, there's no thumbs on the scale here. So of the 7 congressional seats that was it 7? Yeah, 7. So of the 7 that switched, 4 of them went to predominantly red states: Texas, Florida, and Montana. Between those 3 states, there were 4 seats because Texas got 2. North Carolina's a purple, got 1. Colorado, we're just going to call it a blue, got 1. And Oregon, we're going to call it a blue, got 1. So 7 seats, 2 hard blue, 1 purple, 4 hard red. Now, for the states that lost seats: California, New York, Illinois, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and West Virginia.
Aside from West Virginia, all those seem pretty...
Well, so California, clearly blue. New York, clearly blue. Illinois, clearly blue. Michigan, clearly blue, with the exception of Trump in 2016. But Pennsylvania and Ohio, those are both called swing states for a reason. So those are both purple. And then West Virginia, I don't even really know. Is that more purple?
I'd say it's red.
We'll call West Virginia red. So of the 7 states that lost, you have 4 hard blues: California, New York, Illinois, and Michigan. You have 2 purples: Pennsylvania and Ohio. And you have, we'll call it a red, West Virginia. So
every time you say it, just understand that I have to swallow a whole steaming bowl of John Denver.
Do you want to get it out, David?
I already did. I let it out a little bit. It's like,
I know you did, but I talked right.
It's like when you shake up a soda bottle or a pop bottle, depending upon where you are in this wonderful nation.
Yeah.
And you just unscrew it a little bit so that it decompresses a little bit, and you hear that little... Mm-hmm. That's what I did. But you know what? I want to erupt into it. So please, just call it WV. Can we call it WV from now on for my sanity?
Well, that's it for the stats for this episode. The rest is just listening to your boys pontificate.
Take the rest of the week off, statisticians. Take it off. You've well earned.
If that's what you're here for, if that's why you tuned into,
you're just WV like numbers podcast, being talked to you.
It's
1, 4, 6, 8 percentages over under. You're out of here. Get out. We don't like you anyway.
So now we're gonna put all of the other side's stronger arguments up first. And believe me, if we miss one of their stronger arguments, that's exactly what we want you to come to all the social media pages and our website for. Drop it in the comments. Tell us what we missed, why we're wrong, etc. So based on those numbers, red states, broadly speaking, red jurisdictions, so to speak, are gaining more people are voting with their feet. Forget what they say. Forget what their rhetoric is of I support this party, I support that party, or this policy or that policy. What do you see in the numbers about where people are physically going with their feet? That's a rather important thing to tell you about what the broader population of America is respecting in its policies. Now, David was making the point about California and all of the really bad things that are pushing people out. And you'll never guess, most of those bad things are completely preventable human decisions. You can't do anything about the earthquakes and the forest fires in California, but you know what you can do something about? Not having rent control laws that drive property prices through the roof that a middle class, double income couple can't even afford. You don't put policies into place that exacerbate the poverty situation and then throw up your hands and say the rich aren't paying enough. You don't tax the rich into oblivion, have them leave for other jurisdictions like Montana and Texas and Florida.
By the way,
and then say, well, why are all the rich people leaving? We're not going to have anybody to tax now.
After you're taxing all those rich people to live in those really, really fancy houses, what other policies did you create that should drive down those real estate adventures? The fact that homeless people are running around in droves and they have squatters' rights wherever they just so choose to sit. So your $7 million home can have a Woodstock amount of tents on its front yard. You're still getting taxed for that land that they're sitting on, but you can't remove them because of the policies enacted by the people that you're paying a lot of money for your very valuable real estate. That's all I'm saying.
Or how about this? Because in libertarian circles, and maybe this is a new concept to some that aren't in those circles and those discussion boards and stuff, is, David, have you ever heard of the concept of a tiny home?
I've lived in one my entire life. What are you talking about?
Okay, so this is like a legitimate millennial type generated trend of people are voluntarily downsizing. Like young professionals are saying, forget this, like housing prices are absurd. And so there's been an entire industry that's come up around building tiny homes. These things are like 200-300 square feet, 400 square feet, and it's a fully functional home. Like it's the size of this room, and they completely use all of the space so efficiently that you got drawers coming out of everywhere, and you live in this tiny home out in the middle of nowhere.
We're turning into China.
Okay, just hold on a second. I'm making a point about the homelessness problem that you were referring to. So I just wanted to say, that's what tiny homes are. So there's an entire industry.
I thought it was an app I could download on my Google Marketplace when you said tiny home.
There is an entire industry that has built up because of this organic interest of people who can build small homes that are habitable for humans. Now, some of these companies and private charities have said, hey, here's a market solution to the homelessness problem. Hey. Let's take some of these vacant city properties that the government's not managing anymore, and we will donate a bunch of tiny homes, and we will so that at least they, first of all, they have a roof over their heads. Second of all, they don't have to hang out on the freeway. Third of all, it
removes them from the eye of the public. As horrific as that sounds, it is kind of a thing.
Well, it gives them a start. Like sometimes you hear,
it protects them from other homeless people. By the way, it protects them from everything else.
Right. Or, and this is a completely legitimate point that, homeless advocates bring up all the time. They're like, homelessness is in and of itself a hurdle towards getting out of homelessness because, think about it. You're homeless, right? You don't have access to running water for a shower, to iron your clothes or whatever. You go on Indeed at the public library and you get a job interview and you show up to that thing looking all disheveled. Like, just not having a place to wash your clothes and prepare yourself to go out in the world and even have a chance to compete to get a job. Homelessness is a big thing that stands in the way. So again, a nice market solution is a company that voluntarily wants to just give these people at least a shot at having a roof over their head.
You mean a private enterprise that might get money from the government could do better than just giving the government a lot of money with the promises of fixing the problem for you?
Or that's the thing. Some of them don't even get money from the government. Again, everything is donated. The company comes in and says, hey, government, you have a city lot over here that you haven't managed for 15 years. We can put 50 tiny homes on that thing and you can have like a little community. And for years, California politicians have fought this tooth and nail and did not want to let people voluntarily do this at no cost to taxpayers. They didn't want to let them do it. I just saw an article like last week that I think they started they finally are giving in.
It's almost like they didn't want it to happen. It's almost like they wanted the ability to create legislature so that they could tax more efficiently and set aside money. Just if you're a listener right now and you want to look further into this homelessness epidemic, just look at the tax revenue and the funds allocated for it in the budget of California and how much of it actually went to the homeless problem and how well it fixed it and how much is just kind of lost. That's your homework assignment for the week. Didn't know that you were going to be getting it, but guess what? That's what we like to do here. We throw curveballs. We don't throw heaters all the time. We throw curveballs, strikes. We mix it up. We play inside and outside the strike zone. Sometimes we'll paint black. Most of the time, we're coming right over the heart of the plate with the hot stuff.
Exactly. And, to David's point, when he said, it's almost like they didn't want it. They were fighting it tooth and nail. Like they didn't want this solution that was not just thrown in their face. There were advocates banging the drums at city halls all over California where the homeless problem was the worst, saying, hey, here's these private charities, private individuals that just want to spend their time, talent, and treasure because they care about homeless people. Like that's the reason why a lot of them said they were doing it. And the city governments were just like, no. And to David's point about that, it seems like they didn't want it to happen. That is because when you have a monopoly on force, the best way to keep that is to always manufacture crisis. If you're not needed, if your monopoly of force is not required to be exercised, it makes it a lot harder to maintain the legitimacy of why you have that power. So you need crises to constantly be happening, and you need to manufacture them if they're not happening on their own. You need to stave off solutions so that you are always the final solution, the final arbiter of fixing whatever went wrong. You can always point the finger and blame it at the rich or blame it at some other group, to keep the people divided amongst themselves. But you, as the one that's claiming ultimate unchecked power, you need crises to respond to.
And all I'll say too,
and so yes,
if you think we're bullshitting you, just look into what happened. What was it? The welfare plan with the bailout checks. 26 billion just went poof missing in the welfare thing. Where do you think those went? We don't know where it went. Can you find out? Are you going to find out? No. We'll just never. We'll give you that receipt of exactly where that 26 billion went right after we tell you who killed Jeffrey Epstein and who really killed JFK.
Yeah, and I mean the 26 billion that went proof. And what were the macro numbers? I think the checks of the first one was like a total of 130 billion for everybody that got $1,200 checks. But then the entire bill was $2 trillion. So
why was
I'm not good at quick maths, but there's a lot of dollars between 130 billion and $2 trillion.
And why was that bill 2,000 pages long? Why was that bill so long? All it needed to say was, people are hurting, give them money. Donald Trump.
Yeah, that's it. And listen, don't misunderstand, because there are going to be some dyed-in-the-wool libertarians that are listening to this thinking that we're saying that's what should have been done. No, we're not saying that is the appropriate policy response. But what we are saying is, if you're going to do it, just do that.
What's that saying?
All of the other, kind of pork belly, handouts to your politically connected friends and et cetera, like cut all that out. If you're going to pay the people, just pay them and nothing more.
What's that old adage? Government never lets a good crisis go to waste.
Exactly.
Perfect. Right.
So we set all that up to say we understand the opposing argument to I think what you get the conclusion of of what we're saying with these migration numbers is you're seeing currently a mass migration of people, regardless of their political affiliation, regardless of who they say they are to their friends and family. What did their actions tell you? Their actions betray their true intentions, and their actions are telling you that they are choosing to go to jurisdictions that at least marginally are quote unquote more free. So for example, think of Texas and Florida right now, just in the context of coronavirus. After all, the census was taken mid-corona, when some states were locking down super hard. And you mean to tell me that there weren't people sitting in California, one of the most intensely locked down states in the whole country, was looking across at Florida and they're saying, man, Florida's got like the second oldest population per capita, which is the most vulnerable group to this virus. We have one of the second or third youngest. They're a global vacation destination. We're a global vacation destination. They've been completely open since September 25th of 2020.
By the way, we should have been the epicenter of the second wave.
We've been locked down triple, quadruple. They've had Super Bowls in that state. They've had national championships games in that state. They've had all kinds of spring break twice in that state. So every single time it was going to be America's #1 death destination. And if I'm a California citizen throughout this whole thing, and I don't care if I'm a raging, lefty liberal, I hate everything, Republican, yada, yada, yada. I'm looking at that situation. I'm like, it doesn't seem like the ruining of my life was worth it, was justified.
Well,
and so they're leaving. They're leaving to states that are marginally more free.
And in my, 8th grade education approach to this, you can dumb that down to you followed the science, now follow the numbers. Now follow the feed. You follow the science. It didn't help you. You kept saying the science. That was your moral high ground platitude. Mm-hmm. Like, this is what the science is saying. And I think we've said it multiple times till we've beaten this dead horse. Science takes years. Yeah. We don't know what science is until years later, and then we can work off of that. Throw all that aside. So all the states that follow the science are now economically crushed, and people are leaving them in droves. And all the places that they said were being so flippant with their mandates and that we're going to cause the next wave and the next genocide of this particular virus are now flourishing economically comparatively to the other states.
Yeah. I mean, not only flourishing, but like here's a point that Tom Woods has made a couple times, and I think it's totally spot on, is he was interviewing somebody about the recent numbers where Florida and California were really close. Like, they were middle of the pack. They weren't the best in terms of numbers of cases and deaths, and they weren't the worst. I think Florida was like number 26th and California was like number 27. So middle of the pack for the states. And he didn't bring somebody on, but he saw somebody on mainstream media, one of the people from the doomer side of the narrative. And they said, how do you explain this? You have one of the older states, one of the younger states, relatively same in terms of global travel. One state's completely open, one state's completely locked down. Like, how do you explain this? And the guy was reduced to saying, California is Florida is doing pretty average. Now, when they were saying Florida was going to be the death capital of America when it opened up back in September of 2020, I don't think that if you said that at that time, I think they'll be pretty average, that you wouldn't have got laughed out of the room by those people, right? It was a foregone conclusion that if you came to Florida, you were coming to dig your own grave, and it's just middle of the pack. So if all of their science is that correct and they miss it by that much, you have to wonder. Again, you can make the argument to us, and it's valid. We're making a correlation causality fallacy. We're saying, it looks like people move to red states more, and we're attributing it to these bad policies. You're right. We could be totally off base about this connection. But if we're not off base about it, would you be surprised? And would you be surprised that people move based on the policies that they have to live under?
And I think we've said this multiple times on this podcast. Would you rather die quick of COVID with a 2% or 3% chance of morbidity, or would you rather definitely die 6 months down the road from starvation? Because that will happen to you, and that's what will happen to these states. They've been locked down so long that the economic recovery from this is not years, it's decades, if it ever does. So you've killed your state following the science on something that we didn't understand, or actually it seems kind of more and more that we refuse to understand nowadays. But please.
I mean, so and the point that you were making about, would you die right now or die in 6 months or whatever, it really is not at all that far unrelated from there's a huge difference between surviving and living. And that's true at the macro level of state policy, and that's true at the individual level. They told us we were supposed to lock down and not leave our homes for all these months, and because that's how we were going to survive. Well, just purely surviving is not what human beings are all about. Human beings are curious, they're artistic, they're social, they're all of these other things that go into being a mentally healthy, normal, functioning human being.
And by the way,
and those are the things that you were supposed to toss out the window just to survive without ever really living. And they're supposed to do it indefinitely until you take that freedom
what were the
back.
two states that were the most were the biggest epicenters for exactly the people that you described right there, the creatives, the artists, the dreamers? What were the two states that were the biggest ones? California, New York, Los Angeles, and New York City, New York. Those are the biggest epicenters for the performing arts. What's also happening to both the governors in those states right now, by the way?
Well, Cuomo killed at least 10,000 seniors, but according to the New York Times recently, it could have been much more. And Gavin Newsom's getting recalled. As a matter of fact, we got the announcement that you have to have 1.5 million
verified
signatures,
verified
correct,
signatures
to conduct a recall of the California governor, and they had like 1.6. And so, when they toss out some for not being verified, they still got over that 1.5 million threshold, and his recall is moving forward.
So
even the poor subjects that are left there and didn't have the resources to move are saying these policies suck.
If we can, they keep saying we follow the science. Can we come up with our own phrase? Proofs in the pudding. Can we start saying that? If they want science, we get pudding.
Hey, I'd rather have pudding anyway.
Yeah, science tastes like shit. Literally, sometimes it'll turn you into things that you don't want to be turned into.
And I think to just kind of button this up, and look, we're doing pretty good on time this week.
Well, I got another tack on.
We're smart kids.
For the first time ever, the shitty co-host is coming up with a topic, and we can go forward with that.
All right. Well, just to button up this topic, and you brought it up earlier, David, but I don't know if you remembered it, so I wanted to bring it up to finish this.
My memory is not what it used to be.
Is your point about, and we've seen it, actually somebody took out a billboard in Texas facing California that it's like, welcome to Texas, but don't vote like you're still living in California.
Don't bring those policies here, you dumb sons of bitches.
There's some not only kind of common sense wisdom to that, and then there's some it's just, if you have an IQ above room temperature,
which I think if you hit the border
point
of Texas, they just hand you a pair of cowboy boots and a shotgun. I'm pretty sure. If not a 10-gallon hat to boot.
So, yeah, whether you're going to Texas, Montana, Florida, and even to the,
great quarterback.
the other blue or purple states.
Great quarterback.
Is, don't vote for the policies you just ran away from. Don't go there and turn those states blue. Why would you do that? And again, that's coming from two people who don't see a whole lot of daylight between the reds and the blues. But on this issue, on the coronavirus issue, the differences were stark, and people you are seeing in the numbers are voting with their feet, regardless of what they thought they wanted. They're telling you what they really want.
Or at least critically think. And think about whether or not the politicians that you voted in that created the legislature that made it possible for you to live in those states that you had to flee. Let's call a spade a spade. You fled those states for your own well-being. You didn't just, I get sunburned here too often. And
heard the sun's a little less harsh in Texas.
Right, let's go on down to Texas. You fled those states because they're enacting laws that didn't make it survivable for you. Period. Don't bring that shit to another state. Learn from your mistakes. We aren't going to hold you accountable for it, but learn. Now, David's second point is a cautionary tale.
At the concluding end of an entire episode, but this is why we can't do 30 minutes.
It's not a full episode. It's just a tack on. It's a cautionary warning, which is what a warning is. It's cautionary. So I was just in the redundancy department of redundancy. Warning, SNL. You shouldn't shit on somebody that stock is rising while yours is falling. That's all I'm saying. NASA's like, oh, look at this dipshit that he thinks he made an electric car that you can plug into a wall. He thinks he's going to outdo us. Well, apparently some cast members are refusing to participate in Elon Musk's hosting of SNL this
David,
Saturday.
I don't think you linked that line of logic. I think, now correct me if I'm wrong, what you were saying is NASA's like, this Elon Musk guy, he's a joke, whatever. We're in the business of space travel. And then within a period of like a decade or two.
Yeah, he was in cars. He's like, oh, cool.
He was in
I'm
cars
in the rockets
space
now, bitch. And then all I'm saying is SNL, you're not Mike Tyson right now. You're not Mike Tyson of the 80s. You're kind of faltering. No one's really watching anymore. No one really gives a shit about your woke ideology. All I'm saying is don't poke the bear, because you poke the bear, all of a sudden it's going to be the ENL show, and it's going to be the Elon Nightly, whatever the fuck your SNL stands for, and he's going to do it better than you, and he's going to do it with his own money, and it's going to soar to the top of the ratings. That's all I'm saying.
Yes, and listen, all those points are well taken, but I did see somebody write in another editorial, which I completely agree with, so I'm going to regurgitate it here, sight unseen.
Please.
But not take full credit for it. It was something like a week or two. You may remember a couple years ago when Cardi B, she openly admitted to, in her past, drugging gentlemen.
When she was a prostitute, by the way, no judgment, but prostitution.
Okay, yes, that was her occupation at the time. So she would drug her clients and rob them. And not only did people generally just not see anything wrong with that, but, SNL had her on, just a couple weeks later, if not the next week. And so I was thinking, it's just like, listen, I understand we put our celebrities on a different pedestal and we let them get away with things that maybe we wouldn't, tolerate out of our friends or, non-famous people.
Until it's not convenient for our
I'm just saying,
ideology. But
I mean, it's not a good look when somebody literally admits to 2, maybe more felonies. I don't know. I'm not a criminal lawyer, but like those are pretty serious things to involuntarily drug people and rob them. And you have no problem associating with that individual, but because a guy like says some tweets that you don't like, and some articles have called him a libertarian, which
you can't.
I don't even think he would claim that mantle, but maybe he does. Like, for whatever reason, that Elon Musk is the worst person in your mind. Like, really? That's the hill you want to die on.
The guy that's trying to make humanity survive and send us to Mars and is trying to build everything to help us. You're going to hold a gripe with him because of a couple of his political ideologies or stanchions. Interesting. I thought this was a time that we were supposed to come together. And we were supposed to take the human as a human and then deal with the politics afterwards.
And now that we bring this up, I do want to tie it into, I want to say it was episode 39, but we'll put whichever episode it is in the show notes page, where we talked about, you're allowed to use any analogy and go after anybody with any sort of rhetoric as long as it's in service to the cathedral. But if you go against the cathedral, then you're persona non grata. And the context in that instance was, for 4 years, everything about Trump was Hitler and Nazis and Holocaust and fascism. And then as soon as a libertarian page makes a Holocaust reference saying that the vaccine passports were similar to the Star of David's from the Holocaust, they were just the worst people ever.
Or an actress equates not even your policies, but just turning a nation's neighbors against themselves as the downfall and the dark path that we should not walk down. She got canceled as well.
Right, exactly. Yes, the Gina Carano episode. That's exactly right. So, she made a similar argument. She is, not personally, but, she's swimming in the pool with the cathedral out there in Hollywood, and she gets axed. And so when I think about this Elon Musk thing, I really think about it the same way. Is your point about NASA is actually a bigger point than maybe you had originally thought it was. I
always think macro, but I bring it down micro.
I think you were making the point, which is also correct, is that NASA had all the taxpayer funding in the world, had a 50, 60 year head start on Elon Musk, had, all of the smartest minds and everything working on its projects. And within 10 years, Elon Musk is not only launching rockets into space, but landing them upright so he could use them again.
For less money.
And just outcompeting this government apparatus. And if there's one thing the cathedral hates, it is for you to... Listen, first of all, the cathedral hates when you don't follow its rules. It really hates when not following its rules lets you beat them at their own game.
If you need any like visual stimulation for this particular argument, just watch Iron Man 2. Just watch Iron Man 2. Do you know what I'm referring to?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Go ahead, please.
And so, not only has Elon Musk beat them at their own game, and so that's why the cathedral hates him, but to tie it even back in with the first point of this episode, look at how Ron DeSantis appeared in the headlines the whole time versus Andrew Cuomo, right? I think at some point they were literally calling DeSantis like DeSatanist or something like that. Like he was conducting an experiment in human sacrifice, I think was one headline.
While the Cuomos were yucking it up on CNN at 8 o'clock and making everyone feel so warm at home. And, it's like an Italian. They're talking about the mom's spaghetti. Knees weak, arms are heavy. They're nervous. You know what I'm saying?
Writing books and literally winning Emmys from the cathedral while he was literally killing thousands and thousands of elderly people. So,
interesting.
Just... as you go on through the rest of your life, dear listener, just ask yourself, is the cathedral being supported or is the cathedral being challenged? And then what am I supposed to be told about the person who's doing the challenging? And then think about it critically. And we think you might become a little more suspect of it.
A little sus. So, Dane, let's just say I didn't listen to the first 10 minutes of this episode and just skip to the last 30. Where would I find this podcast?
You would find this podcast primarily at our website because we want you to come there and join the email list, but also check out that support our work tab and, find a way to support the show.
We're not begging yet, but don't make us, okay?
We're ugly when we cry. Anyway, wmdpodcast.com/41 is where you'll be able to go straight to this episode. But this episode is also available on YouTube. Please subscribe, comment, help us with the algorithm over there. You can find us on Instagram or WMD Podcast sorry, Weapons of Meme Destruction. Also search that on Twitter. Also search that on TikTok. Get in contact with us. Tell us why you love us. Tell us why you hate us. Tell us why
you think we're okay.
We're just okay. We are superbly average.
Slightly above would be great. That's where I always aim.
For a mystery topic there at the end, under 45 minutes, I think we did good, David.
I don't hate what happened.
All right. Well,
every one of these is a treasure. Just simply a treasure.
That's right. We will see you next Monday. But before then, if you want to check us out on our one-time weekly live show we do every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern on the Stereo app. You can find it in any of your
Google Play
or iTunes stores.
iTunes? There we go.
Apple Store, whatever.
iTunes? Why do they name it iTunes when it's Apple?
I don't know.
A-tunes.
I'm a big dummy and probably said it wrong.
A-tunes.
Now my Apple.
No, that's not you. It's them. iTunes is like, what the fuck? You named it an iMac. Why not an AMac?
Because it was an iPhone.
The AMac is back. Word up! And it's marketing 101, guys. Come on.
Anyway,
go ahead.
So yes, download the Stereo app. Search either or both WMD_Dane or WMD_David. And as long as you're following one of us, you'll get a notification when we go live on Wednesday nights at 7:30 p.m. Eastern and join the conversation. We will play your little voice notes and we will respond. You will join the conversation.
I thought it was 7.
We start at 7.
Okay.
And we try to go till like
just,
8
don't be sharp. Just show up and then say some, I think you guys rule, and then get out of here like, thanks, guys.
Yeah.
We really appreciate your support.
Sometimes we need those to keep carrying on.
Exactly. It's in this cold, dark abyss. Anyway.
All right. We love you. Have a good week. We'll see you next Monday.
Face melting.